Well, to no one's surprise, Marvel's gone and they've done it again after garnering a decent amount of support and some level of praise with the somewhat success of Thunderbolts, as the movie is only going to lose about maybe $100 million currently, as the film has grossed over $270, with a required passing of $360 million to break even, or so it would seem based on the numbers that are currently reported, but that of course means nothing because it will have absolutely no application to the longevity of the brand, as we get to see the newest offering from Marvel Studios, and of course that is the first trailer, finally, for Riri Williams' IronHeart, the next big, the stunning, the brave, the show that will save lives, the follow-up to Ryan Coogler's both somewhat successful Black Panther movies. Well, the first one was highly successful, just not very good. Coming hot off of his success of Sinners, we're looking at Ryan Coogler coming back and doing IronHeart, though I wonder how much he actually directed, but then again, it might have been all of it since the show finished filming back 3 years ago in 2022, and only now are we going to see some of it in a miniseries, but was initially meant to be a movie, and then a full-length show, and now a miniseries, which they're going to drop half of on their launch day instead of doing any kind of spaced-out release, which does not look good. They don't expect this to draw any kind of numbers, so they want as big of view numbers on opening day as possible, because nobody is coming back. And of course, the trailer looks just about as bad as you think it would. Instead of it being "We be Robin, Robin, Robin," it's "We be crazy," and that's the only line that it repeats, as there's a song repeating endlessly throughout this terrible teaser. They do their best to try to endear Riri Williams, but of course, the through line is you just had to know that the power was in you all along to build the best Iron Man suit to ever exist. You just had to have faith in yourself and see it within yourself, and it's all about self-empowerment instead of her actually going through trial and error. It's a completely different story to the one that we should be getting, but instead it's the kind of story we're used to getting in the modern day of the MsheU. So before we go any further, like, subscribe, and let's actually get into this. Now, what I can only expect to be absolutely no one's surprise is this show is not doing well, at least the teaser trailer that came out, and I guarantee you no one's looking forward to watching this, as IronHeart dislikes surge as Marvel's latest Disney Plus trailer gets ratioed on YouTube. Marvel Studios is facing a wave of backlash as the IronHeart trailer continues to get pummeled with YouTube dislikes. What was meant to be a bold new chapter in the MCU is now shaping up to be one of the most poorly received launches yet. A brave new chapter, doing every single thing they've been doing in the MsheU and in the Marvel comics for years that nobody has ever once liked. As of this writing, the trailer sits at 153,000 likes to 231,000 dislikes, and the gap is only widening. These IronHeart dislikes point to a clear fan sentiment as viewers make their dissatisfaction impossible to ignore. Well, they will ignore it because that's all Marvel ever does. And I actually do wonder whether or not Marvel bothers looking at the analytics of these, because I could easily see them just ignoring them because it's not like they're public. Now, as it is important to know, this number isn't exactly accurate. This is an aggregate based on the users who use this platform, and admittedly, the people who would use the dislike add-on are more likely to dislike things, such as this trailer, so it's very likely that the numbers are a bit fudged. Not quite fabricated, but these aren't an accurate picture. But anyway, as of right now, it's currently sitting at 6 million views, with 161,000 uplikes to a negative 257,000 dislikes. That is a massive ratio that there's very little recovering from. And this only echoes sentiment from Disney's Snow White, as that movie also had an extreme ratio according to this add-on of 100,000 upvotes to 1.4 million downvotes on YouTube. And as we know, that movie was an absolute box office flop, with it even coming back on Mother's Day and only netting about $5 million in views. Now, IronHeart appears to be following the same trajectory, only this time it's not a remake under fire, but a spin-off series that many fans argue was never earned to begin with. Well, IronHeart was never a deserved character, and she was, more importantly, never a liked character. I can't think of a single person who knows who IronHeart is and likes her. Now, there are many people who know nothing about IronHeart who she's their favorite, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Marvel doesn't really care about the tourists who like IronHeart because they don't watch shows, they don't read books, and they don't buy merchandise. They're Wikipedia warriors who are convinced that Riri Williams is the second coming of Christ, and therefore she must be the best character because she's black, she's queer, she's diverse, and she's smarter than Tony Stark. So therefore, the 25% different and 100% better version must, of course, be a better character. But they don't read books, so they don't actually give two shakes or a rat's ass as to whether or not she's a quality character or not. And more importantly, the trailer kind of just does shit on Iron Man's legacy a little bit, implying that Riri Williams is special because she's making her suit out of nothing but scraps that she stole from other corporations. That's right, the black female protagonist, who's going to be just like the white male protagonist, is stealing everything. Whereas Iron Man, let's not forget, he wasn't given his gifts in a lab, he wasn't given his suit of armor as a birthday present from his rich daddy. No, he built his suit in a cave from scraps. Let's not forget, Mark 1 was the prototype. He had never built a suit like this before. He had never even played around with a suit like this before. He built this exoskeleton in a lab with a failing heart as he's tied to a car battery. Whereas Riri Williams gets a massive lab, MIT resources, and she goes and steals even more of it. She is the privilege incarnate. Now, the RDJ name drop, desperation or disrespect, in a recent feature with Empire, actress Dominique Thorne, who plays Riri Williams, shared a brief encounter she had with RDJ, where the former Iron Man actor offered her 2 thumbs up. Marvel is now framing this moment as some kind of symbolic approval, attempting to position IronHeart as a spiritual successor to Iron Man. But there's no actual connection, as Tony Stark was long gone by the time Riri entered the picture. Tony Stark died 5 years ago. Let's not forget that. And this was filmed in 2022 as a sequel to Black Panther 2 Electric Boogaloo. But let's be honest, these two characters have never met on screen, have never even shared a storyline, and have no organic link beyond the fact that both wear armored suits that are painted red. This spiritual successor narrative feels more like marketing than mythos, an attempt to borrow legacy credibility rather than build it. Most other legacy characters generally have a tenuous link at best to the characters they're derivative of, but Riri Williams has as much in common with Iron Man as if you were to argue that Miles Morales got his powers from Thor. There would be no connection, and there is no connection between these two characters other than they've got a slightly similar aesthetic, except for the fact that they don't. Riri Williams' exosuit is so beyond bulky that he looks more like Stan's suit than Stark's suit. Marvel used to spend years developing characters before handing over the torch. Now they're hoping a celebrity nod and a shared tech name is enough. The remarkable remark backfires. Thorne also stirred reactions with a quote meant to highlight Riri's scrappy origins, as that seems to be the only thing they have going for her. Don't worry, she's not a Mary Sue, she's just scrappy. Look at her struggle and overcome the odds. But you always know she's going to come out on top, and it's pretty clear that they have no intention of giving her any real challenges. Even in the first trailer that we get to see, Riri Williams is trapped in an elevator with a set of tasks placed before her. And after spending about 3 seconds thinking about it, she completely overcomes the challenge in a completely different way. Instead of diffusing and turning off the bomb, spraying toxic gas into the air, she instead rewires the door so that she can slightly open it, and then she tears a metal bracket off of the wall of the elevator, bends it with her bare hands, and then uses that to lever open the door. Yep, she manages to brute strength her way through a brain puzzle and is somehow rewarded as being the smartest person when she used strength instead of her brains. All they have going for her is the claim that she's scrappy and original, but let's not forget, in the original IronHeart comics, her main motivation was that she was not discriminated against. In one of the key panels, she gets talked to by one of her professors, where her white professor asks her, "Are you upset that you aren't being discriminated against?" And she answers yes. That's her backstory. She wishes she got microaggressed, so she had a reason to rebel against the white oppressors. But to highlight these scrappy origins, Thorne had commented she's a dumpster diving, whereas Tony Stark was the bajillionaire. What she's able to accomplish is remarkable. Was Tony Stark a bajillionaire in that cave in Afghanistan? Did he have his masses of wealth and his small loan of $1 million from his father to fund the Iron Man suit? No, he was working off scraps to build the Jericho missile system that he had invented. Working off scraps of that and bad candlelight inside of a shitty mine shaft, he manages to put together a bulletproof piece of armor powered by a car battery arc reactor, something that realistically should have killed him. The chances of that working in his favor was near none, and yet he somehow does it. Is that not scrappy to you, or is that just because he's a bajillionaire? Is that the only reason he really gets to go through it? And while on the surface, this quote is meant to celebrate Riri's resourcefulness, but for fans of Tony Stark, or people with common sense and ears, it rings hollow. Iron Man's origin wasn't about wealth, it was about survival. He built his first suit in a cave, under duress, with shrapnel near his heart. His arc was about responsibility and redemption, not privilege. In fact, commenting on the wealth of Iron Man directly violates the story behind the Iron Man character. The story behind Iron Man 1 and 2 is him learning accountability, learning to be responsible, learning that being a war profiteer is kind of a bad thing, and learning to fix his mistakes. The whole story arc behind the Iron Man films was to remove his privilege from himself. And the idea that Riri is more authentic or impressive because she comes from less not only misses the point, it feels like an attempt to diminish what made Stark a compelling and beloved character. You make the assumption that people only like his success because he's a bajillionaire, and you're equating your originality and authenticity to your lower class status, but you're an MIT student, so you can't be that lower class. They're showing us conflicting ideas and expecting us to conflate the two when there's absolutely nothing in common. We're looking at apples and grapefruit over here. There's absolutely nothing to tie these two together. And this kind of framing, elevating new heroes by subtly undercutting legacy ones, is becoming a trend at Marvel, and it's not going over very well. Well, it's not really a new trend. It's been going on for years. It started with a 25% all new, all diverse, all different casting back in the comic book era, and they're just continuing it to the MCU now, and it's not going to end until the MCU is inevitably forced to reboot. But it looks like we're not the only ones who have absolutely no faith in this show. It looks like Marvel and Disney are right there along with us, as they seem to be dumping half of the show on the release date. The IronHeart backlash isn't just about tone, legacy, or character comparison, it's also about strategy. Marvel will release 3 of the 6 episodes on premiere day, a tactic many believe is meant to artificially boost minutes watched and stem a potential rating collapse. It's the same play they used with Echo, another underperforming Disney Plus series, and it signals a lack of confidence. So here's basically what they're planning on doing. People like to binge. If I turn on a show and it's going to play the 3 episodes back to back to back, I'll probably just sit through the 3 episodes instead of having to wait next week, because I guarantee you, ain't nobody coming back next week for more. By dropping the 3 episodes at once, assuming at least even half of the people watching it watch 2 of the episodes, you can boost a huge amount of watch hours, far more than if you only release 1 or even 2 episodes. The watch hours are going to look a lot better, and that's the metric that they can use to spin it. Remember, they used watch hours to spin Echo and The Acolyte as successes, when in reality, based on the raw viewership, they weren't. So if they say IronHeart opens with huge viewership numbers, it's based on the watch hours for all 3 episodes being conflated with watch hours for 1. It's going to be clever marketing to make the show look like a success when it wasn't. Now, if IronHeart was a sure bet, it would roll out week by week. Instead, Marvel seems to be rushing half of the show out the door before fans check out entirely. So here's what happens. If they had faith in the show, they'd release episode 1, next week episode 2, next week episode 3, yada yada. And that way, they get the people who might check it out for IronHeart 2 whole months of money. However much you're spending on your monthly subscription of Disney Plus, you're paying for 2 months so you can watch through IronHeart week by week, assuming the show is worth that. But because the show isn't worth that, and they're worried people won't return, if you dump it all at once and then all at once again, you aren't getting the 2 weeks, but it looks better for your watch hours. It's basically a clever way to make the show look successful when there's no chance it could be. And of course, audiences aren't going to be fooled. The surge in IronHeart dislikes is more than just online noise. It's a clear message from the audience who feel like they're being sold a product, not a story. The attempt to wrap Riri Williams in Tony Stark's shadow, inflate hype with empty symbolism, and ignore genuine fan feedback is exactly why trust in Marvel has eroded. Well, no, the trust in Marvel has eroded because they haven't given us anything to be trustful of. There's been absolutely no content for us to put our faith into whatsoever. There's absolutely no reason for anyone to get invested when we know it's not going to be good, when the best you can do is a 6 out of 10 with Thunderbolts. We're so back, people decree, as we get a movie barely worth watching in the background. We get a silly little popcorn flick with 20 minutes of depression, and somehow we're back, and then we're going to be immediately greeted with this, and then Fantastic Four, which has absolutely zero chance of being good, as reportedly it's gone back into reshoots. as it launches in a month. While you certainly could maybe make something of quality based on the premise set up for IronHeart, it's clear that Marvel doesn't have it. A teen girl having to find her way to become the hero she's always meant to be, but she's got to break a few eggs to make that omelet, becoming scrappy and working with actual criminals to steal the parts she needs to be the world's next big superhero. There's something you could do there, and I guarantee you, Marvel doesn't have the cojones to do it. Especially when you're pulling on so many trashy and terrible stereotypes just to make it work. And of course, the Law is the villain, and Riri Williams a good guy, and she's just misunderstood, and her search for criminality is completely justified. But people are tired of this. They're tired of this kind of character. They're tired of this girl boss character. They're tired of having these stereotypes on display on screen, and it's just not going to sell well with audiences. And that's pretty much what we're looking at. At this point, the only thing that can sell is a classic story with classic heroes, but Marvel is too afraid to give us that because it violates their diversity quotas. But that's pretty much all I've got. Are you guys looking forward to watching this show? Are you even going to bother watching it? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next one.